Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all having a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and I hope you are all safe today. Today, we're going to be talking about the Shadowlands, and I'm going to be piggybacking off of something a dear friend of mine said in his video. And this was a mention by Akalon, whom I've known for quite some time. Got Akalon into speculation initially, and he has some really wonderful ideas. But someone shared to me something that Akalon said in his video about the Machine of Death, and I just was kind of like, duh, like a duh moment here. So let's just get right into that. As you guys know, this channel is all about lore and speculation. And if you enjoy that, I would certainly appreciate if you like this video, because it's the best way to let me know that you enjoy my content here on YouTube. And drop a subscription, guys. We're 19K away from a silver play button for YouTube. And as you guys may know, if you've been watching my videos for a while, that is like my #1 goal for YouTube, 100K. That'd be amazing if you guys could help me get there. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Akalon has been jumping into the Shadowlands stuff a lot recently, and I'll have a link down in the description below as to the specific video where he said this. Admittedly, I've watched the video, but I had it on kind of like in the background. I think that's how a lot of people watch my videos, is they just listen to me talk. They don't actively like watch all the time. So admittedly, I missed a lot of what Akalon said. So if I'm repeating anything that he said, I apologize. It just means we're on the same line of thinking, which is a great thing. But what he said in his video was that the Arbiter was the Machine of Death. And I was like, wait. When we think about the Shadowlands, the only thing that is quite literally broken is the Arbiter. Like, she's the only thing, from what I can see, not having Shadowlands Alpha access. Only thing, Lizard over there, and Doggo down here. Lizard and Doggo. Hello. I'm recording, can you go away? She's the only thing that's quite literally not functioning, right? And when you look at the Arbiter, let's take the Arbiter and let's contrast her with the JAILER. The JAILER looks much more natural, like more organic, right? And when you look at the Arbiter, she looks really more like a machine. And the Arbiter's function is kind of like a logic-based, kind of like sorting hat, right? Like think Harry Potter, when those souls come into the Shadowlands, she is basically using the logic which she has to determine where souls go. And let's be honest, man, when you look at both of them side by side, the JAILER and the Arbiter, to me, it's kind of looking like that thing in the Arbiter's chest probably belongs to the JAILER. But the difference here is that the Arbiter is kind of using what I would kind of perceive almost as like a cold logic to determine that, right? The way that it's described is that the Arbiter can kind of see into like the truth of your being, therefore can determine where you should go. And the Arbiter is processing souls from innumerable worlds. As we learn right at the start of the Bastion area, you have to actually like list what world you came from, right? You have to tell this thing that's kind of like registering you in Bastion where you came from. So that's also interesting because that tells me that the Arbiter is not providing any of that information. But anyway, back to the Arbiter, when we see her, you see her kind of like powered down, kind of like slumping forward. And it would seem that this machine thing is not functioning. I think Akalon hit the fucking nail on the head there. I don't know why I didn't think of that. It seems obvious to me now that the Machine of Death that is broken is the Arbiter. But I want to take it a lot further than that, because I think that we can come to realize a few very interesting things. Now, the first thing that I want to kind of throw out there is I think that the Arbiter needs to be powered by something, right? And I would say that what is most likely that she is powered by is anima, right? Like she's probably skimming anima off the top of the souls that are processed here and potentially taking something from them to power herself. I think that's pretty likely, because I think when you talk about machines, they all need to be powered. I would honestly also say that based again on her appearance, it's possible that that core within the Arbiter is actually what powers her. And at this point, when we first saw the imagery of her and the Jailer, it was a very prevalent thought, I think, for a lot of people when they looked at them, that whatever it is that's in her chest probably goes in his chest. I don't think that there's a big hole in his chest for no reason. So I think that thing in her chest absolutely belongs to the Jailer, especially considering the color scheme. I mean, it kind of matches the runes on his body. The kind of black core of it is quite interesting. I think that kind of thematically lines up with his appearance. And I think I'm going to mention this later on in the video too, but I just want to throw out there that the leaked concept art of the Jailer, where he looks significantly more powerful and more, in my opinion, ancient and interesting, I think that might be what he's supposed to look like if he has that core that the Arbiter has. And that thing is actually going to become very important later on in this theory, because it may tie in directly with something that Sylvanas has held that looks very similar. But I also do think that the Arbiter functions off of a couple different things. I think the Arbiter, assuming that she's a machine, right, that it is a cold logic type of thing, she functions off of logic, algorithms, and processing power, right? Think of it like a computer, or we'll just say, even though I'm not super educated on them, we'll say like something like an AI, an artificial intelligence. And when it's being provided data, it has to use logic and algorithms in conjunction with processing power to come to a solution, to provide a solution for whatever it's calculating. So a lot of people are asking, what broke the machine of death? And you can kind of narrow it down because of what we just recently learned about Ysera in Ardenweald, that Ysera came through in one of the last groups before the drought began in the Shadowlands. And you can already see how quickly the effects of the drought are taking place in areas like Revendreth, for instance. But that allows us to kind of narrow down when this breaking of the Machine of Death happened. It happened shortly after, or perhaps was involved with, the death of Ysera. And initially I wasn't sure in Legion which zones were like canonically supposed to happen first, because it was free flowing, right? You could go to Stormheim or you could go to Asuna. But there's actually kind of a panel interview from PAX West 2016 where Luis Barriga basically says that it actually was supposed to happen in a particular order. And that order canonically was Asuna, Val'sharah, and then Stormheim. So, considering some of the interesting events of Stormheim, that kind of brings in Sylvanas, who obviously is very heavily tied into whatever is going on here. So, I think what a lot of people are going for is trying to make an attribution to what Sylvanas did with the soul cage that was provided to her by Helya, and that which she used to try to chain Aiur. Now, and I think there's different reasons for why Sylvanas probably wanted to do that to Aiur, but that's a different video in which I've already discussed that. So we can kind of narrow this down, right? The breaking of the machine seems to have happened shortly thereafter Ysera's death. Here's what I think. I think what could have broken this machine, the Arbiter, I think it could have been, honestly, one of two things. And you're going to hear my personal original idea after this, but something that was brought to my attention by some members of my Discord is actually kind of leaning me towards maybe something else happening. And the idea of what Sylvanas does with the soul cage is actually driving me a little bit more towards this idea. So in the game, there is actually an artifact power item. And a lot of these have really interesting flavor text. This is one of them. It's called Fragment of the Soul Cage. And that little thing, that little like lantern that Sylvanas was using to try to bind Aiur, that's what it is. It's called the Soul Cage, and she got that from Helya. The description on this little artifact power piece reads, "Gifted by Helya, the Soul Cage held the power to compel the soul of any being." So, basically, what Sylvanas is holding is something that has the power to force a soul to do, I guess, whatever you want with the right power. Now, the interesting thing about that is that sort of reminds me of, in a sense, what the Arbiter is doing. Souls aren't getting to pick and choose where they go. I view it almost as being compelled to go to a certain place wherever the Arbiter is choosing that they need to go. The other thing about this soul cage is that it's granted from Helya. Now, some people don't see any connection with Helya and the Jailer. I think that's definitely an obvious thing that's going on, considering a couple things, right? First off, Helya is kind of like the lord of the underworld in the kind of Norse-themed portion of WoW. She also is connected with a dungeon called the Maw of Souls, which is like, are you serious? Come on, man. That's a pretty nice little description for that. She's also just obviously inherently a being of death. And given that we've had strong hints that Helya is not actually dead and will most likely be returning at some point, we had that in BFA. I don't think it's far-fetched to imagine that Helya actually is pretty relevant to this. Helya is directly connected to the Valkyr, and it seems that to an extent the Jailer may be as well. So I think that that's another thing. The last thing is the physical appearance of this lantern. It has that eerie blue and white color scheme. It looks like there is definitely something that is literally inside of the soul cage. So here's where I took it. Here's my little idea. Is that perhaps that thing that's in the Arbiter's chest, maybe that's part of the Jailer's soul, right? Let's say that the Jailer and Helya in some capacity have a connection or may have known each other. Maybe it's possible that whatever is in that soul cage, maybe that's a part of the Jailer. Or maybe it's a part of his power or a portion of his soul, and that's why it can literally be used to compel the soul of any being. I think that would be very interesting. So perhaps by Gen Greymane showing up and enacting vengeance on Sylvanas and shattering the soul cage, maybe because the Jailer is no longer in possession of whatever this core thing is and the Arbiter now has it, breaking that potential portion of it quite literally broke the machine of death. I mean, think about that. When they talk about when they describe what actually happened, breaking the machine of death, I love the idea that it was quite literally a piece of whatever is causing her to have this function was broken. And it's interesting again because Ayer has some choice words for Sylvanas about what she has. And Ayer actually says, treacherous banshee, you do not know what you're meddling with. Kind of to suggest, Sylvanas, this power that you're wielding is maybe a little bit beyond your comprehension. Like, you might not even know exactly what it is that you hold. And I love the idea that that this is actually what broke the machine of death, is this interesting connection that could have actually led to this. Now, then you have to ask yourself, was it planned? Did the Jailer plan that to happen? Was Sylvanas kind of being used as a pawn in that regard, using her personal goals as a way to manipulate her into helping the Jailer even further? Was Helya in on that? Did she know about that? So those are other questions that we'd have to discuss and go through. But that is one potential option, is that that's actually what broke the machine of death. But now let's get into my own kind of more original idea and talk about how you break computers. An inability to rely upon these algorithms and logic and processing power to come to a solution. What if there was a soul that went to the Arbiter, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a single soul, but let's just play with this idea for a minute, that went to the Arbiter that basically made the machine question its own logic? What if the machine was so intelligent that it actually was able to question, given the right circumstances, whether or not it was making the correct choice? And I'm sure you guys have seen this in like movies before. What if it was made to question the contents of a soul? What if something came to the Arbiter that was literally writing the line between being sent to Bastion and being sent to like Ardenweald, for instance, or even a better contrast, Bastion and maybe the Maw? What if something was sent to her that she couldn't figure out what to do with? That could be what shut her down. Let's say a soul may be trapped between two contrasting elements like the dream and the nightmare, just to throw an idea out there of what I mean. But what if it goes even more beyond the inability to process a specific soul? But what if the presence of said soul made the Arbiter question herself, right? Because what the Arbiter's job is to seemingly use a logical, pragmatic, and unbiased, which is strange according to how she assigns souls, process in order to basically delegate the Shadowlands. And this spreading out of souls seems to be referred to as the purpose by those present in Oribos. And it seems like it's something that, they just trust in and believe in the purpose. And anytime you hear something like the purpose, you should automatically be a little bit concerned about that. You should probably be suspicious. Yeah, it sounds maybe a little dogmatic, a little maybe tunnel visioned on that one. And given that it's kind of described that the Shadowlands functions via this purpose of the Arbiter, and it's kind of all to her design, is quite concerning. But back to the Arbiter. What if something made her question her own morality? What if something came through where the logic in those algorithms in the Arbiter's cores, processor cores, and memory, what if they couldn't handle the idea that the Arbiter and what she's doing and what she's designed to do maybe isn't right? And maybe the logic is flawed. And maybe the souls that are coming to the Shadowlands aren't supposed to go where she's been sending them. Maybe basically something came through that overloaded the machine and shut it down. But let's take this a step further. Cut and dry, the Arbiter is a machine. You guys, if you're viewers of my channel for anything longer than a week, you probably know how I feel about the Titans. And I know that some people think that the Arbiter predates the Titans. Allow me to clarify. What was said about all of this is that the Shadowlands predates the Titans, and then that the Arbiter, her existence predates all memory, even the Titans, according to some accounts. And we can't forget the context which is provided with that last part of the statement, according to some accounts. We have to acknowledge that, because that is not a definitive statement. And so some will take that as Blizzard leaving the lore open and able to be changed based on what they want to do. But I'm going to be real. I think the whole premise of the Arbiter and the Shadowlands is pretty well drawn out at this point. By the time that the expansion comes around, Blizzard knows what they're doing with the Arbiter. They know what they're doing with the Jailer. They know what the truth is about those characters too. This isn't something that's kind of spurred along patch by patch. When you introduce characters like the Arbiter and like the Jailer and characters like Argus, right? And like Sargeras, and we have these interactions with them. Sargeras obviously being the more extreme and defined example in this case. They know what they're going to do with these characters. So I think they have an absolutely reined in idea of what's going to happen here. But I think that the Arbiter as a machine was probably built and put there by someone. And based upon her appearance, this regal, almost titanic, orderly looking thing, it would not surprise me in any capacity if the Titans knew about and even had access and probably massively altered the Shadowlands. I mean, we're talking about gods that can walk through the planes of reality and the ethereal and the astral, bend souls and shape worlds, and fucking are literally burning radiant flame, or controllers of time and life. Like, we're talking about massively powerful beings here. We even have a Titan who seems to be aligned with the force of death and even has incredible thematic similarities with Oribos itself, which is Argus. Obviously, I've made a video about that. I'll put that one down in the description. You guys might like that one. So the notion that the Titans may have implemented this machine, which is basically ordering out the Shadowlands according to the purpose with logic and algorithms and processing power, is not at all, to me, shocking or far-fetched. Now, you may disagree. That's okay. But this is the way that I view it. When you think about beings like Algalon, right? Or even Elegon, which when it spawns quite literally talks about like its processors coming online. Like, you think about the Forge of Wills and the Forge of Origination, and we start thinking about all these big machines that the Titans have built, these machine constructs like Mother, which are using, again, logic and algorithms and processing power, and they are basically a hyper intelligent, almost artificial intelligence type of machine. I've never seen any other beings in Warcraft make something like that. It's just, well, maybe besides some dwarves, but it's still nothing compared to what the Titans were able to produce. With that being said, let's jump into the big thing here, right? Arbiter is the machine of death, and it's broken. But now what's happening? Where are souls going? This is where it gets real fun for me. The souls aren't just going to Bastion naturally, or to Revendreth, or to Ardenweald. They're not going to Maldraxxus naturally. All the souls of the dead are flowing into the Maw. Now that the Sorting Hat is gone, it's all going to the same place. I find that very peculiar because it almost says to me that without the delegation of the Arbiter, all souls would naturally flow into the Maw. Now let's quickly talk about what is happening to the zones that now don't have the anima flowing into them. They're falling apart. Things are going very bad, very poorly for these areas because they don't have the anima from the souls that are supposed to be sent to them from the Arbiter. But it's all going to the Maw instead. In Revendreth, they're literally like withering away because of this drought, right? That's the one that I've paid the most attention to. In Ardenweald, things are not going very well, nor are they in Bastion or Maldraxxus from what I have gathered so far because of this anima drought. So let me ask you this. What if what we are told about the Shadowlands isn't necessarily all true? About how these souls are supposed to be sorted and the legitimacy of how natural these zones which they're being sorted into even is. What if after all this time, and we don't even know how much time has passed, how old this place really is, or how time even functions within it, what if something similar happened to the Maw long ago? What if the Maw only is what it is because it was starved at one point, like all of the other zones? And in that instance, it started to fall into a state of decay and despair and turn into a much darker thing than it was ever meant to become. What if the Maw is quite literally a product of the delegation of the Arbiter? And the reason why the Jailer is seemingly jailed is because someone or something or a group of someone or some things came along and made it so. What if this whole thing was set up from the beginning and the Jailer is supposed to have a lot more control than we're led to believe? Because to tie it back to what I believe about the Jailer's link with the Lich King, I see the Lich King as just like a mini Jailer. And the Lich King has the Sand Lane, which are like the Venthyr. The Lich King has the Scourge, which are like the Necrolords, right? The Lich King has the Valkyr, which are like the Kyrian, right? The Lich King had corrupted and infiltrated the Drakari, who had the Loa, which is very similar to Ardenweald. And it's almost like the Jailer is like the original Lich King. And as the Lich King had domain over his realm, maybe so too should the Jailer. And maybe something happened that made that not the case. And we're given the perception that the Jailer is just the worst guy in the world because now he's getting the souls, but maybe that's how it was always supposed to be. And this ties into the idea that maybe what Sylvanas is doing is not quite as bad as people are perceiving it. Now, there's no getting around this. The way Blizzard executed her story progression in BFA and the way that her motives were illustrated, or the illustration not being present at all because it's in books and it's in short stories that a lot of people are not going to go out of their way to consume as a multifaceted media to understand what is going on with Sylvanas. This needed to be better represented in the game tenfold. But now a lot of people just see Sylvanas as an overpowered character for the sake of being overpowered, and they've lost any notion that what she's doing is actually supposed to be the right thing by fixing what is going on. Now, this all ties back into what I believe is going to happen to Azeroth in our stead. I don't think that good things are on the horizon for Azeroth. I think light and life are a very dangerous coupling of forces that are definitely on their way here. And you guys can watch my last video if you're curious about that. I think you'd really enjoy that. On that note, again, if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. It would be sincerely appreciated. Thank you guys very much for that. And check out my Patreon so you guys can watch this video early, like those of you who are watching it early right now already know about. There's a link to that in the description down below. But it ties into this this thing with Sylvanas, where she really is she's seeking out a particular goal. It's not just randomly driven, and I don't think it's a thirst for power, and I don't think it's a means by which Sylvanas can become immortal and make all of her followers immortal, because Sylvanas already is immortal, right? And she can just fuck off if she wants to. Sylvanas could literally just forget about everybody and stop doing anything. If it really was just her being selfish, Sylvanas doesn't have to do any of this. She could disappear and never return, and it would make no difference. But you see, I think Sylvanas, she wants something different. And I would almost go as far as to say that the person whom she's working with might be able to give her what she wants. So we'll see about that one. Here's the thing, I'll finish with this. The Shadowlands is not going to be just about death. The Shadowlands is also about life. Ardenweald gives us a little peek into that, but they said that at BlizzCon too. We're talking about the cosmology in a more cyclical sense now. And we're about to learn something, I think, pretty soon that's going to reveal a truth about the cycle of life and death, in that it is not functioning properly. In fact, I would honestly say as well, the image that we see of the Jailer in the game from his data mined model is probably the anima-starved version of the Jailer. And I'm kind of starting to more deeply root in the idea that the concept art, which was leaked on Twitter, that I perpetuated through my channel and my community, I think that image of the Jailer might actually be what he's supposed to look like when he has the power that he's supposed to have. And that image of him looks highly titanic. He looks like he could be like the Titan of the dead. You know what I mean? There's something very wrong going on in the Maw, and I don't think that it's necessarily the ruler of the Maw's fault that it's even happened. And we don't really even truly understand, I don't think anyway, the purpose of the Maw in its entirety. But I think there's some big kind of conspiracy going on here. In fact, the fucking Shadowlands landing page on the World of Warcraft website literally says that we're gonna uncover a conspiracy to unmake the cosmos. What a choice of wording there. Fuck me, dude. You guys know what I think about that, dude. The words "unmake the cosmos." Oh fuck. Like, oh fuck. Yeah, I'm ready for that shit. So with that all being said, you guys, let's wrap it up. The Machine of Death is the Arbiter. I think that it was a logical kind of paradox, which may have shut her down. And I think that after this happened, Sylvanas maybe recognized it or was told about it by someone, maybe Helia, who knows, and basically was sent on a mission to cause as much devastation as possible in Muzela, and Helia are definitely in on it. I know that much. And I think that based on Akalon's most recent video thumbnail, I'm assuming he's thinking the same thing. Something is definitely wrong with how souls are spread in the Shadowlands. I think it's maybe even unnatural. Souls seem to naturally flow towards the Maw. Something could have happened long ago to make the Maw what it even is. And something very horrible, I think, probably happened to the Jailer as well. So with that all being concluded, let me know what you guys think. This is I'm excited about this idea, right? And it's not about being right, but it's just about the notion of like, what if this is what's going on, man? What if the nice, pretty, orderly thing that we're led to believe is like the good isn't the good? You know, I like that trope, and I think that's fun. So let me know what you guys think down in the description below. Once again, guys, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below. Go and follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/pyromancersarg. I would really appreciate that, guys. There's a link to all my social media in the description below. You guys can follow me there and see me tweet about lore things and other things recently. You guys can follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Pyromancer. I just actually streamed yesterday for a few hours. It was a wonderful time, so thanks for everyone who made that possible. Huge shout out to my patrons, because without them, videos like this simply just are not possible. And my patrons, those who have a $5 pledge or above, actually got to see this video early, before anybody else. So If you guys want to check out my Patreon rewards, go and check those out in the description below. Patreon.com/Pyromancer. I have several tiers ranging from $2 to $25, all of which get you unique and fun and exclusive access to content from me. So again, a huge shout out to my top contributors and all of my patrons over on patreon.com/Pyromancer. You guys are amazing. With that being said, you guys, I appreciate you very much. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay awesome. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.